My friends, tonight I want to share with you the great secret of life. The one power that transforms the impossible into the possible, the unseen into the visible, and the dream into reality. It is the power to believe, even when all reason, all sense data, all outward appearances deny the thing you seek. To believe it when reason denies it is not to live in fantasy, nor to deceive yourself with illusions. It is to recognize that reality is far deeper than the evidence of the senses, and that what we call reason is but a servant to a greater faculty within us, the imagination. When you confront a desire, a vision, or a dream that contradicts the facts of your present life, reason will rise and declare, "This cannot be done." Reason will marshal its facts. It will point to the balance sheet. It will remind you of the years, the history, the failures, the laws of probability, and it will say, "This is impossible." Yet within you there is another voice, a quiet whisper that dares to say, "All things are possible to him who believes." That whisper is not born of logic. It does not consult with statistics. It does not inquire how the thing will come to pass. It simply knows that imagining creates reality. Now the challenge of life is this: how can we believe it when reason denies it? How can we hold fast to a vision when the senses tell us the opposite? How can we say, "I am," when every fact of life shouts back, "You are not"? That is the art of faith. Faith is not blind acceptance, nor is it wishful thinking. Faith is the ability to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, to live inwardly in the end, and to let that inward conviction clothe itself in facts of the outer world. Let me give you an example. Suppose a man finds himself without work. He has searched, he has knocked on doors, he has filled applications, and all reason says there are no opportunities. Yet within him there burns the desire for security, for contribution, for expression. Reason denies it. The bank account denies it. The friends around him, shaking their heads, deny it. What is he to do? If he listens to reason, he will sink into despair. But if he dares to believe when reason denies, he will rise inwardly, close his eyes to the evidence of sense, and claim within himself, "I am employed, I am contributing, I am living in the joy of my work." He clothes himself inwardly with the reality of his wish fulfilled. He feels the relief, the satisfaction, the gratitude, though nothing outward has changed. Inwardly, he is already what he desires to be. Now reason will say, "You are deceiving yourself," but I tell you, you are not deceiving yourself, you are creating yourself, for imagination is the womb of creation, and what you dare to assume as true, though reason denies it, must clothe itself in the garment of fact. The outer world is but a shadow cast by the inner act. If you persist, if you remain faithful to that assumption, if you live in the end, outer circumstances must yield. The job will come, the opportunity will open, the world will rearrange itself to mirror your inner conviction. This is the great paradox. Reason insists that seeing is believing, but the truth is believing is seeing. You cannot wait for outer confirmation before you believe, for the outer is always the offspring of the inner. To believe only when reason permits is not belief, it is agreement. True belief is daring to stand upon the invisible, to rest upon the unseen, and to call the things that are not as though they were. I tell you, everything in this world, from the smallest object to the greatest civilization, was once only imagined. There was a time when reason denied the existence of airplanes. There was a time when reason denied that men could walk on the moon. There was a time when reason denied the possibility of voices traveling across oceans. Yet men dared to believe when reason denied, and their belief clothed itself in fact. The Wright brothers refused to bow to reason, and they flew. Edison refused to bow to reason, and he brought light out of darkness. Every great achievement was first an act of faith, an assumption held against the evidence of the senses. But you may say, it is one thing for great inventors and dreamers to believe, but what of my own life? What of my needs, my desires? I tell you, the law is impartial. It is no respecter of persons. As within, so without. Your small desire is no less worthy of manifestation than the greatest discovery of science. For the same law that governs the rising of stars governs the manifestation of your desire. The key is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If reason says, "You are poor," assume inwardly the state of wealth. If reason says, you are sick, assume inwardly the state of health. If reason says you are alone, assume inwardly the state of companionship. To assume is not to strain, nor to force, it is simply to enter into the feeling, the mood, the inner knowing that the thing is already yours. You need not know how it will come, the how belongs to the depth of your being. You need only remain faithful to the end you have chosen. Consider the story told in ancient scripture of Abraham. He was promised a child, yet he was old and his wife barren. Reason denied it. All logic, all biology, all evidence said it was impossible, yet he did not stagger at the promise. He was fully persuaded that what he had been promised was already accomplished. And out of that faith, against all reason, the child was born. This is not merely an old tale, it is a drama of your own soul. You are Abraham whenever you dare to believe in the invisible, when you hold fast to your assumption, though everything outward denies it. Do not be deceived by appearances. Appearances are shadows, reflections of past beliefs. They are not final, they are not ultimate. They are the fruit of yesterday's imaginal acts. If you do not like the fruit, change the seed. If you do not like the shadow, turn your attention to the light. Your imagination is the light. To dwell in the end, to persist in the assumption, is to sow the seed of a new reality. It may not sprout immediately. There may be a time delay, as there is in nature, but if you remain faithful, it must appear. Now many say, but I cannot deceive myself. I cannot say I am rich when I know I am poor. But listen carefully, you are always imagining something. Right now, if you say, I am poor, you are imagining poverty. You are affirming a state that reason has given you, and by your faith in it, you keep it alive. Why not then choose to imagine wealth? If you must imagine, and you must, why not imagine the best? Why not claim within yourself the state your heart longs for? To say, I am rich when outwardly poor, is not self-deception, it is self-creation. It is sowing the seed of wealth in the only fertile soil there is, your imagination. Reason is a good servant, but a poor master. It can show you the facts of the present, but it cannot see the possibilities of the future. Only imagination sees the unseen. To believe when reason denies is to place imagination above reason, to let the dream govern the fact, to let the unseen govern the seen. And when you do, the seen will reshape itself to mirror the unseen you have dared to assume. My friends, test this in your own life. Take a desire that reason denies, close your eyes, enter into the silence. Feel the end as though it were already accomplished. Do not say, I will be, for that places the fulfillment in the future. Say, I am. Feel it now, rest in that assumption, fall asleep in it, let it saturate your being. And as you persist, you will find that reason itself begins to yield. The facts of life will shift, circumstances will move, doors will open, the impossible will become inevitable. I remember a story of a woman who longed for a home. Reason said it was impossible, her income was small, her credit poor, her savings non-existent, yet she dared to believe. Each night she entered her home in imagination. She walked through the rooms, she felt the furniture beneath her hands, she heard the laughter of her family within those walls. She persisted though reason mocked her. And in time, by a series of events no one could have planned, the home became hers. She did not need to scheme. She did not need to beg. She simply believed when reason denied, and her belief clothed itself in bricks and mortar. This is the law of life. It is impartial, it works whether you believe in it or not. If you dwell in the assumption of lack, lack will be yours. If you dwell in the assumption of abundance, abundance will be yours. Reason may deny, but faith will supply. For faith is imagination disciplined, imagination sustained, imagination sustained, imagination believed. Do not ask how it will happen. The how is not your concern. Your only task is to live in the end, to persist in the assumption, to believe it when reason denies it. Life will find the how. Circumstances will conspire, people will appear, doors will open, ideas will come, paths will unfold. The depth of your being knows more than your surface reason. Trust it. Rest in it. When you believe it, though reason denies, you align yourself with the creative principle of the universe. You move from being a victim of facts to being a master of them. You recognize that the outer world is but clay in the hands of the potter, and the potter is your imagination. Form it as you will. Dare to assume the best. Dare to believe the impossible, dare to live as though your desire were already true, and you will prove in your own life that imagination creates reality. Do not be discouraged if results are not immediate. In nature there is always a seed time and a harvest. The oak tree does not spring forth the moment the acorn is planted, but within the acorn, the oak is already contained. Within your assumption, your fulfillment is already secured. Persist, remain faithful. Though reason denies, though the senses contradict, hold fast to your vision. In due season, you shall reap if you faint not. To believe it when reason denies, it is the highest act of faith. It is to walk by inner vision, not by sight. It is to rest in the unseen, to trust the invisible, to stand upon the rock of imagination when all else crumbles. It is to say, I am in the face of you are not. And in that daring, in that assumption, lies the power that moves mountains, that heals bodies, that transforms lives, that reshapes worlds. When you first attempt to practice this art, you will find yourself torn between two worlds. On one side stands reason, with its facts, its evidence, its charts and records. On the other side stands imagination, with its vision, its promise, its whispers of what could be. At first the voice of reason is louder. It will tell you, be sensible, do not hope for too much, do not risk disappointment. Look at the facts, they are final. But within you there is a gentler voice, a voice that may sound like your own, yet carries with it a depth that transcends you. It urges you to believe, to assume, to persist, to see with the eyes of faith. The struggle between these two voices is not something to be feared. It is the very arena where your soul grows. If believing when reason allows were all that was asked of you, there would be no growth, no expansion, no miracle. The challenge is to believe when reason denies, to persist when evidence mocks, to choose imagination over fact. This inner choice is the seed of transformation. Think of the farmer who sows seed in barren ground. Reason says, there is nothing here but dirt. But he knows the secret. Within the seed lies the tree, the fruit, the harvest. Though outwardly barren, inwardly it is filled with potential, and so he sows in faith, waters in faith, waits in faith. Time passes. Days of silence, nights of emptiness, weeks where the field looks unchanged. Reason says, see, you have wasted your labor. But he persists. Then comes the first tender shoot, the green blade, the swelling ear, the full corn in the ear. So it is with you. When you sow in imagination, you may not see immediate change. The outer world may look the same, but within the seed has been planted, and if you persist, it must break forth. To persist when nothing seems to happen is the true test of faith. Many begin with enthusiasm, they close their eyes, they assume the end, they feel it real. For a night or two, perhaps a week, they dwell in their vision. But when nothing outwardly changes, they grow weary. They say, it does not work, and they abandon the seed before it has time to sprout. But the wise know that persistence is the secret. Hold fast to your assumption. Live in the end as though it were already true, regardless of outward delay. Reason denies because it sees only the past. The senses report only what has been already crystallized. But imagination sees the future, and faith brings it into the present. To believe it when reason denies, it is to step outside the cycle of past and to claim a new future now. It is to bring tomorrow into today. Let me tell you another story. There was a man who longed to reconcile with his estranged brother. For years there had been silence between them, wounds unhealed, words unspoken. Reason said, it is too late. He will never forgive. The past is fixed. Yet the man dared to imagine otherwise. Each night before sleep, he saw his brother's face filled with love. He felt the warmth of an embrace. He heard words of reconciliation spoken. He persisted though reason denied it. And one day, without planning, without effort, his brother called. The words were spoken, the embrace was given, the relationship restored. He believed it when reason denied, and his faith made it so. Do not underestimate the power of your imagination in relationships, in health, in wealth, in every aspect of life. When reason says, it cannot be, imagination says, it already is. You are not creating out of nothing. You are calling forth from the unseen what is already contained within you. All states exist. All possibilities are present. You simply choose which you will occupy. The key is feeling. Thought without feeling is a shadow. Feeling is the life, the vitality, the electricity that charges your assumption. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled,
You unite thought and emotion into a creative act. You become what you have assumed, and the world, like a mirror, must reflect it. Now some of you may say, but what if my desire is too great? What if the gap between where I am and where I want to be is too wide? I tell you, there is no gap. The moment you assume the end, you are there. You do not travel to it in time, you awaken to it in consciousness. The outer journey is but the unfolding of what you already are within. There is no distance in imagination. The beggar can assume wealth as easily as the prince, the sick can assume health as easily as the strong. It is not harder to imagine a palace than a cottage, not harder to imagine abundance than sufficiency. The same law applies. Reason measures by difficulty, by probability, by effort. Imagination measures by desire, by conviction, by faith. To imagination, nothing is impossible. And when you dwell in imagination, when you clothe yourself in the state of your desire, reason itself begins to bend. It no longer denies, but becomes the servant of your faith. It brings you facts that correspond to your assumption. It delivers evidence of what was once unseen. Think of the sculptor. Before he touches the stone, reason sees only a block, heavy, unformed, inert. But imagination sees the figure within. He believes in that form when reason denies it. He holds it in vision. He feels its reality. He persists. And with each stroke of the chisel, the invisible becomes visible. So too with you. Your desire is the form within the block of stone. Reason sees only the block, but imagination knows the figure. Believe in it, hold it, persist in it, and life itself will chisel away the outer stone until your vision stands revealed. When you practice this art, you may encounter resistance, not only from your own reason, but from those around you. Friends, family, colleagues may laugh, may doubt, may discourage. They may say, be realistic. Face the facts. Do not condemn them. They speak from their level of understanding, but do not let their doubts enter your heart. You need not convince them. You need only convince yourself. The world does not respond to their beliefs about you. It responds to your belief about yourself. If you persist in time, even they will see the fruits of your faith, and some will ask, how did it happen? Then you may tell them, I believed when reason denied. Another question arises. What if I believe, and yet nothing happens? Does this not prove the law false? I say, look closely. Did you truly believe, or did you merely wish? Did you persist, or did you vacillate? Did you assume the end, or did you continually return to the old state? The law is exact. It cannot fail. If results seem lacking, examine your inner state. Perhaps you gave power to reason. Perhaps you looked too often at appearances. Perhaps you abandoned the seed too soon. Begin again. Assume again. Feel again. Persist again. For the law is impartial, and faith will always bear fruit if you are faithful.
There is also the question of time. Many say, how long must I wait? But remember, in imagination, you wait not at all. You already are what you have assumed. The outer manifestation is but the shadow, the echo, the reflection. To ask how long is to doubt, to place fulfillment in the future. The true stance is, I am now. If you remain faithful to that, the outer will come at its appointed hour. You need not strain. You need not force. Life knows the perfect timing. Your task is only to persist inwardly. Consider the words, let the weak say, I am strong. They do not say, I will be strong, but I am. This is the essence of believing when reason denies. Reason looks at weakness and says, admit it, confess it, accept it. But faith says, let the weak say, I am strong. Say it until you feel it. Feel it until you believe it. Believe it until it manifests. That is the law. In health, too, this principle applies. A man may be lying on his bed, his body in pain, his strength gone. Reason says, you are finished. But imagination dares to rise. He closes his eyes, and in vision he walks again. He feels the freedom of movement, the joy of vitality. He persists, night after night, morning after morning. And in time, strength returns, body heals, health is restored. Not because he denied the symptoms, but because he refused to let reason have the last word. He believed it when reason denied it. This is no denial of facts, no refusal to see reality. It is the recognition that facts are not final, that reality is layered, that the seen is born of the unseen. You are not ignoring the outer. You are transcending it. You are planting a new cause, and in time a new effect must follow. Every day you are called to this choice. Will you believe the evidence of sense or the testimony of imagination? Will you be governed by reason or by faith? Life itself is nothing but a mirror of your choice. Choose wisely and persist courageously. Even in matters of destiny, this law applies. Some say, my life is fixed. My background, my past, my circumstances determine my future. Reason agrees. It points to statistics, to probabilities, to patterns. But imagination says, you are free. You can choose anew. You can step into another state. Believe it when reason denies, and you will prove that destiny is not imposed but chosen. Suppose a man born in poverty dares to imagine wealth. Reason says, few escape. The odds are against you. But he persists in his assumption. He feels abundance. He claims prosperity. He walks inwardly, as one who has more than enough. He persists until the inner state becomes natural. And then, by ways he could not foresee, the outer world reshapes itself. Opportunities appear. Doors open. Ideas come. People are drawn. Reason is confounded, but imagination is vindicated. So too with love. A woman may say, there is no one for me. I am alone. Reason agrees, pointing to the empty house, the silent phone, the solitary evenings. But imagination whispers, you are loved. You are cherished. You are companioned. She dares to feel the warmth of an embrace, the joy of companionship, the laughter of shared life. She persists, though the bed is empty. And in time, love appears, not as a stranger forced from without, but as a reflection of the love she already claimed within. Thus, in every sphere of life, the principle holds: believe it when reason denies it. This is the secret of creation, the key to transformation, the art of faith. And so we come again to the great challenge of practice. For the law is simple, yet its application requires discipline of mind and loyalty to the unseen. Every day you are tempted to look outward, to measure yourself by appearances, to judge your life by what the senses report. Every day reason presents its evidence, the bank account, the diagnosis, the rejection, the delay. And if you accept these as final, you remain bound by them. But the invitation is always to turn inward, to dare to stand in the end, to assume the state your heart longs for, and to rest in that assumption until it becomes natural. The more you do this, the more you discover that the world outside is plastic to your inner conviction. It bends, it shifts, it rearranges itself in response to the tone of your being. A tone is not a fleeting thought. It is the atmosphere you carry, the state you dwell in. If you dwell continually in lack, lack must mirror itself outwardly. If you dwell in abundance, abundance must clothe itself in circumstances. If you dwell in health, health will be reflected. And if you dwell in love, love will surround you. Many believe that to change the outer world requires force, manipulation, argument, or effort. But those who practice this art know that the true work is inner. Outward force is but the shadow. Inward assumption is the cause. You need not struggle with men, nor argue with circumstances, nor strive with systems. Simply assume, feel, persist, and life itself will rearrange. This is not passivity but the deepest form of action. For the imaginal act is the creative act. And let us be clear, this is not a matter of mere idle daydreaming. Daydreaming is wishful, vague, and without conviction. The imaginal act of faith is precise, felt, and sustained. It is not idle fantasy but deliberate assumption. When you deliberately assume the end, when you feel it real, when you persist until it saturates your being, then you have planted the seed. And the seed must bear fruit. Consider again the farmer. He does not dig up the seed each morning to see if it has sprouted. He trusts the process. He waters, he tends, but he does not disturb the seed. So with you, once you have assumed, once you have felt, once you have planted, trust, persist, let it unfold. If you constantly check the outer world, if you say, it is not here yet, you are uprooting the seed. But if you rest in the end, if you live as though it were already so, the harvest will come. Reason will continue to whisper, but it is not here. Look around. You are fooling yourself, and you must answer reason not with argument, but with faith. Do not contend with reason. Transcend it. Let reason speak, but do not grant it authority. Let your authority be imagination. Let your trust be in the unseen. The great difference between those who transform their lives and those who do not is simply this. One group lives by reason, the other by faith. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world as it is. The man of faith imagines the world as it could be, and compels reality to conform. History remembers the latter. For every great change, every invention, every revolution of thought, came because someone dared to believe when reason denied. And yet this is not only for the great, for the inventors, for the visionaries. It is for you in the details of your daily life. Do not say, "This law is too high for me." It is as near as your own breath. You prove it every night in dreams, where imagination creates entire worlds, and you move through them as real. You prove it in every daydream that stirs emotion. For that daydream lingers and colors your outer experience. You prove it in every assumption you hold about yourself and others, for the world reflects those assumptions back to you. The law is always at work. Your choice is whether to use it deliberately or to let it use you. If you allow reason to rule, you are tossed about by facts, bound by appearances, limited by what seems possible. But if you dare to assume, you become master of fact, creator of circumstance, shaper of destiny. There was once a man who longed for success in his work, yet outwardly all doors seemed closed. Reason said, "You are unqualified. You lack connections. You lack means." Yet he dared to believe otherwise. Each day he assumed the end. He saw himself respected, prosperous, secure. He felt the satisfaction of accomplishment. He persisted though nothing outward confirmed it. And in time, circumstances shifted. An opportunity arose, a connection was made, doors opened. Reason was confounded, but imagination triumphed. This is the secret. Outer events will conspire to bring to pass what you have assumed within. You do not need to plan every step, nor control every factor. The depth of your being knows the way. Your task is only to persist in the end. Life will take care of the means. Do not fall into the trap of wondering how. The moment you ask how, you descend into reason. You look for probabilities, for plans, for explanations. But the law does not work that way. The how is concealed, for it belongs to the depth. What belongs to you is the end. Assume the end. Feel it real. Rest in it, and the how will take care of itself. Have you not seen this in your own life already? Have you not once assumed something, perhaps lightly, and later found it came to pass? A meeting, a call, a coincidence that seemed miraculous. That was imagination at work. What you assumed, even casually, became fact. How much more then, when you assume deliberately with feeling, with persistence? And here lies another mystery. You are already assuming, all the time. The state you now occupy, whether of lack or abundance, of health or illness, of loneliness or companionship, is itself an assumption. You may not have chosen it consciously, but you are living in it, and life, being faithful, is reflecting it back to you. If you would change the reflection, change the assumption. Do not fight with shadows, alter the light. There is a subtle art in this, for when you assume, you must do so naturally, not straining, not forcing, not trying to believe, but gently, quietly, inwardly stepping into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If you try to believe, you confess you do not. If you strain, you confess doubt. But if you rest, if you quietly accept, if you assume as though it were the most natural thing, then you have entered the state. Practice it tonight. Before you sleep, take a desire, let it be clear. Then close your eyes and imagine the scene that would follow its fulfillment. Do not see yourself striving for it. See yourself after it is accomplished. If you long for reconciliation, imagine the embrace. If you long for success, imagine the congratulations. If you long for health, imagine the freedom of movement. Whatever would be the natural result, imagine it, feel it, dwell in it, and fall asleep in that state. Why before sleep? Because in sleep the conscious mind quiets, reason rests, and the subconscious is open. What you take into sleep sinks deep, and there it germinates. Do this night after night, until the assumption feels natural, and then watch as life itself mirrors it back to you. This is not to say you will never waver. You may find yourself doubting, looking at appearances, feeling the pull of reason. Do not condemn yourself. Simply return again, assume again, feel again. Each return strengthens the state, until it becomes the natural resting place of your mind.
And when it is natural, when it feels like this is who I am, then it must harden into fact. You may notice too, that as you persist in one assumption, other areas of life begin to shift, for states are interconnected. To assume wealth is also to assume freedom, confidence, opportunity. To assume health is also to assume vitality, joy, capacity. To assume love is also to assume worthiness, connection, harmony. Change one state and others follow. Do not limit yourself. Do not say, I will assume only this small thing. For the law does not measure by size. It is as easy to assume a palace as a cottage, a fortune as a coin, a great love as a fleeting friendship. If you must assume, and you must assume the best, why settle for less, when all states are available? And do not fear that you will harm others by your assumption. The law is love, and love seeks only fulfillment. If you assume the best for yourself, you will find that others are blessed also, for you and your world are not separate. The state you dwell in radiates outward, touching all around you. To dwell in abundance is to radiate generosity. To dwell in health is to radiate vitality. To dwell in love is to radiate warmth. As you uplift yourself inwardly, you uplift the world outwardly. There is of course the matter of persistence. Many ask, how long must I persist? And I answer, until it feels natural. You need not count days nor measure time. Simply persist until the state becomes the natural resting place of your mind. Once it is natural, it must manifest. For the outer is always the expression of the inner. Reason will continue to protest, especially in the beginning. It will say, but nothing has changed. You are only imagining. And you must reply, yes, I am imagining. And imagination creates reality. Do not fight with appearances. Do not argue with facts. Simply persist in the end, and let facts rearrange themselves. And if you find yourself weary, if you grow tired of persisting, remember this. You are always persisting in something. You are persisting in lack, in illness, in loneliness, if not in abundance, health, and love. So why not persist in the state you desire? Why not make your persistence serve your joy rather than your sorrow?
When you begin to see results, even small ones, your faith will grow. A coincidence here, an opportunity there, a door opening, a person appearing. Do not dismiss these as chance. They are the first shoots of the seed you planted. Rejoice in them, give thanks, and persist, for they are signs of the harvest to come. The world will call it coincidence, luck, chance, but you will know. You will know that you believed when reason denied, and that your faith bore fruit, and that knowing will strengthen you for greater works. When you come to know this art more deeply, you begin to see that the whole of life is but states of consciousness outpictured. Nothing comes to you that you have not assumed consciously or unconsciously. This is why it is so important to become the master of your inner world, to govern your imagination, to select deliberately the state in which you dwell, for the state you occupy draws to itself the conditions, the people, the events, the circumstances that correspond. To dwell in a state is to live in its atmosphere, and that atmosphere condenses into fact. If you find yourself continually in unwanted conditions, do not despair, and above all, do not blame the world. Rather ask, what state am I perpetually assuming? What feeling have I made my home? And then, having found it, deliberately shift, for you are not bound to any state. You may leave one behind and enter another, just as you may leave one room and enter another. States are not fixed identities. They are infinite possibilities. You choose by assumption, and you persist by feeling. This is why we are told, choose this day whom you will serve. You are choosing each day, each moment, whether to serve reason or imagination, whether to serve appearances or faith. To serve appearances is to remain bound. To serve faith is to become free. It may be that when you first attempt this, you will feel the pull of the old state as though it were gravity holding you. The habit of thought, the memory of the past, the evidence of the senses, all will pull you back. But persist gently. Do not resist with strain. Simply return again and again to the new state. Each return weakens the old. Each assumption strengthens the new. In time, the new becomes natural, and the old loses all power. Think of a man learning to play an instrument. At first his fingers stumble, the notes sound false, the old habits of silence resist. But day by day with practice, the music becomes natural. So with this art, at first your imagination may stumble, your faith may falter, reason may shout, but persist, and in time the assumption becomes natural. Then you no longer strain, you simply are, and what you are within must appear without. This practice is not confined to great desires, though it applies to them. It is for the little things as well. You may test it in small matters. For every small proof strengthens your conviction. Imagine a letter, a call, a word from a friend, assume it, feel it, persist, and watch as it appears. Each proof builds confidence, and soon you dare to assume greater things. And as you dare, you discover that no desire is beyond reach. For the law is the same. Even now, as you hear these words, you are assuming something. Perhaps you are saying within, this is true, or this is foolish, or I will try, or I cannot. That assumption itself will shape what follows. If you assume it is foolish, you will find nothing in it. If you assume it is true, you will prove it. For your assumption governs your experience. And here lies the subtlety. You cannot escape assumption. You are always assuming. The only choice is whether you assume deliberately or by default. To assume by default is to live by reason, by habit, by appearances. To assume deliberately is to live by faith, by imagination, by vision. One path leads to bondage, the other to freedom. When you begin to live deliberately in assumption, you find that life itself becomes more pliant, more responsive. You no longer feel like a victim of circumstance. You no longer wait for others to grant you permission, for systems to change, for conditions to improve. You know that the cause is within, and that to change the cause is to change the effect. You become inwardly free, even before the outer changes. And in that freedom, the outer must follow. Consider again the words, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is substance, it is not nothing. The unseen is not unreal. The unseen is the seed, the invisible essence, from which the visible grows. To believe is to give substance to the unseen, to make real in consciousness what reason denies in fact. And once it is real in consciousness, it must in time appear in form. And you will discover something marvelous. As you practice this, you begin to trust life itself. You realize that life is not hostile, not indifferent, but responsive, creative, faithful. You no longer fear the future, for you know that the future is only the shadow of your present assumption. You no longer dread circumstances, for you know they are but mirrors. You no longer feel powerless, for you know the creative act is within your reach at every moment. You begin to live from the inside out, not the outside in. No longer do you wait for outer change before you feel joy, gratitude, peace. You feel it first within, and the outer conforms. No longer do you say, I will be happy when, but I am happy now, for I assume it. And then circumstances bring reasons for your happiness. Reason will say, this is backward, and it is to reason, but it is the way of truth. The outer always follows the inner. To wait for outer change before you change within is to wait forever. To change within first is to command the outer, and perhaps you ask, but is it not dishonest to assume what is not yet true? I tell you, it is not dishonesty but truth at a higher level. For the inner is more real than the outer, the cause more real than the effect, the seed more real than the fruit. To assume inwardly is to align with the truth of being, to acknowledge that imagination is reality. To deny this is the real dishonesty, the dishonesty of pretending that appearances are final. So then practice. Take a desire, any desire. Form the scene that would follow its fulfillment. Step into that scene. Feel it real. Dwell in it until it feels natural. Return to it again and again, especially in moments of stillness, especially before sleep. And persist until it feels like home. That is the art, and when results come, as they surely will, give thanks, not as though they were miracles from without, but as confirmations of the law from within. Give thanks, and let that thanksgiving strengthen your faith for greater works. As you grow in this, you may find that your desires themselves change. At first you may desire only things, money, position, possessions, and these are good, for the law is impartial. But in time you may desire also states of being, peace, wisdom, compassion, love, and these too are granted, for all states exist. You may even discover that what you truly long for is simply to live consciously as the creator you are, to move deliberately from state to state, to prove within yourself that imagination creates reality. And this discovery is the pearl of great price, worth all else. You may wonder too why the world at large does not practice this, why so few believe. The answer is simple. Reason is loud, imagination is quiet. Reason demands proof, imagination asks for faith. Most men bow to the loud voice. Few trust the whisper. But those who do, those who dare to believe when reason denies, are the ones who transform their world. And as you persist, you will discover that even the denials of reason become fuel for faith. Each time reason says, "It is impossible," you smile and say, "Then it is certain." For you know that impossibility is the soil of miracles, that denial is the proving ground of faith. Without denial there is no need to believe. Without impossibility there is no room for creation. Reason's denial is not your enemy, it is your opportunity. So when reason denies, rejoice, for you are being invited to prove the law. You are being given the chance to believe beyond appearances, to claim the unseen, to stand in the end, and in doing so you step into the creative power of life itself. And as you prove it, you will come to see that nothing is withheld. All states are yours for the assuming, all possibilities are open. The world is infinite in its response. You need only dare to believe when reason denies. And still you will find no end to this journey. For creation is infinite, imagination boundless. Each desire fulfilled will give rise to another. Each state entered will reveal new states. You will move from glory to glory, from faith to faith, from creation to creation. For life itself is endless becoming, and you are the creator of its form. So tonight I invite you, choose a desire that reason denies. Enter into it inwardly. Feel it real. Live in the end, and though reason will protest, though the senses will shout, remain faithful. Believe it when reason denies it. For if you do, you will discover the greatest truth of all, that imagining creates reality, and that your assumption, if persisted in, will harden into fact.